I'm smiling because I can't wait to talk to this woman. Her name is Joan Underwood. She's put together this book, The Manager's First Aid Kit. We're looking at a practical guide to remedy 3 of the most common managerial challenges: self, others, processes, and systems. Simple Simon. Joan, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Same thing here. Same thing here. And the last time I was with you, I wanted to look at the whole question of cultivating habits, winning habits, as a matter of fact. That chapter, which is chapter 3, starts with the chains of habits are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. And that is such a truism. It is uncanny.
It's so powerful and so true. And I think of my grandmother, who is the single most influential person in my life, even though she's been gone for quite some time now. And some of the greatest lessons that I've learned came from conversations that I had with her. Now, this is a woman that didn't have a lot of schooling, but the wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I remember her explaining to me that the first cigarette she took up, she had no idea that it would go on to control her life.
Wow.
So the habit, the change was so light, she didn't realize what she was getting into. But there's hope. Yes. Because she also told me how she came to break the habit. And my also was a smoker, and he went through acupuncture and all these other things to try and get him to stop smoking. Mm-hmm. My grandmother simply stopped smoking on her own overnight because there was a cinema. She used to smoke and she used to like the cinema.
Yes.
And the cinema burnt down. And they rebuilt it in quick time. And she says, wait, it's my money they took and rebuilt the cinema. Why am I giving them my money? So she stopped going to the cinema. Yes. Similarly with smoking. When she started smoking, the science wasn't there. Well, at least they weren't telling people about the science in terms of how bad it was for you. So it was fashionable and she was quite the fashionista. So she smoked. Mm-hmm. Then she found out about all the adverse health consequences, and she actually ended up with heart disease. And I saw her smoke her last cigarette on a Saturday night, and she put it out, and she said, "That's the last cigarette I'll ever smoke." And that was it.
And that was it. What is
so? Why do I tell the story?
Yes,
the motivation.
Yes, indeed. It requires more, but there's certain steps. You see, for me, to change a habit requires replacing a habit. You can't just tell me stop because life is a continuum. I got to do something. So how do we replace a habit? And there's certain triggers that you write in the book that will help me to understand the components of a good habit, and to apply those components helps me to therefore now get into the rhythm of having my new habit. And you listed them. You said 1, an acquired behavior pattern; 2, a trigger, which activates that behavior; 3, motivation, which we were just talking about; 4, feedback, getting to know what's going on; practice; and environment. And that is so true. That's why I got so excited about this, because it's one of the things I had to learn very early as well. When it comes to replacing a habit, there's certain things I must understand about the mechanics of it so that I can be better at adopting this new habit. And I want to encourage everyone to understand what it is. This acquired behavior pattern. Let's talk about that first.
Okay. So it's not something that will come naturally to you. So, for example, getting up every morning and exercising for an hour is an acquired behavior.
Yes.
Because if you're me, what comes naturally for you is to stay in bed until you absolutely need to roll out. So that's the acquired behavior. It has to be something that does not come naturally for you. You have to make an effort in the first instance in order to be able to accomplish it.
And trigger, what does that mean for you when we say trigger?
So what is that thing that will cause you to go into the acquired behavior? So, for example, in the case of my grandmother, she was triggered by the fact that her health started to deteriorate. And so that is the big trigger. You also need a trigger that's proximate to the acquired behavior. So what is it that is going to take you to the point where you will do it and on a recurring basis.
Yes.
So, for example, let's go back with the getting up and exercising. What comes right before that will, stimulate you to exercise? So, and it needs to be something that you can have in place consistently and that will have the desired impact.
Right.
So for example, with the getting up and moving, exercising, for me, the breakthrough that I had with, out of bed was where I put my alarm, right? If it was on the bedside, I could reach over and snooze it. If it was across the room and my husband is lying next to me asleep and he has no intention, no reason, no desire to be up at 5 o'clock, I better get moving and turn that thing off before it wakes him up.
Yes, yes. So there's always something, whether it is that we looked into the mirror and we saw what we didn't like to see, or we were told by a medical professional there is something we have to do about it. There has to be a trigger that gets us going and being able to know to stay through with it. But the motivation to continue it is also going to be absolutely critical. Finding that thing within that keeps it ticking and going and going and going all the time. And that's not for a lot of people very easy.
I love what you just said in terms of that thing within, because people have different interpretations and understanding of motivation. The definition that I embrace is an inner drive to satisfy some unmet need.
Yes.
And you said inner drive to satisfy some unmet need. So it has to be something that comes from within you as opposed to something external, because we can shut out external stuff.
Got that right.
But when there is something inside of us, which is an unmet need, whether it's a need to be healthier, whether it's a need to be there for our children. So it has to be something that comes from within, that there's this quench, this thirst to have it satisfied.
Correct. I was going to use the word fire. That's burning within. You have to do something about it. And it's that have to do something about it. That's your motivation to do something about it. But then you move on to point number 4 in our cultivating this new and good habit to feedback. Now, feedback could be received or, and again, internal and external for me here, where it's someone who says you did and this is what I saw. Or me, myself, stop in having a self-actualization. I begin to assess myself as well. Is that the way you see it as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, for example, if we go with the health and fitness again, when you see that, the last time I went to the doctor, my blood pressure was within normal range. That hasn't happened in forever. I'm able to go up the stairs without huffing and puffing. So you get that feedback that says you're doing something right. Here's a reward. Or it can be negative in terms of I'm not getting what I want to get. Therefore, I know I need to be better at this. So the feedback loop is absolutely essential because human beings, we thrive on getting that feedback. Because imagine if you were doing everything right and no one ever gave you that feedback. You never got a compliment. There was never any positive outcome associated with it. Unless you have very high intrinsic, again, coming from within motivation, you could drop off on the behavior. So the feedback loop is really, really important.
And the thing is, sometimes you can go between feedback and motivation because you hit a block. For a second, you would knock off your bills and you're told, okay, no, Pearson, you were not quite doing this right. Accept the feedback, rebuild from within and go again. Find that fire to keep going. I like that. So it can go between the two. Practice. You said here, while I do not believe that practice makes perfect, when I read that, I smiled to myself. I said, Joan, you are on the same page as me. It cannot be a one size fits all that practice makes perfect. Because sometimes you can be practicing the wrong thing and perfecting the wrong thing.
Exactly. Perfection is an illusion.
Yes.
Right? So, I can get up every day and say, you think I'm going to turn into Usain Bolt? No. But I'll get better.
Indeed,
if I stick with it, I can improve.
Indeed so.
Right? So practice.
And for any change of habit, for any change to take root, the environment must be critical to it as well, to it building and being fostered as well. And this is where managers and supervisors and self also need to take pay greater attention, because oftentimes if you want to change, you cannot change if you stay where you are.
Yes. And I invite you and our viewers and listeners to think of environment as having three elements.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one we'll talk about is place. So as you work to form this new habit, locate it in a space, in a place that reinforces it. All right. So if, for example, my grandmother and you spoke about when you stop a habit, you're picking up another behavior is going to replace it. If she had decided, I'm going to continue to smoke, but I'm going to stop smoking, but
Mm-hmm.
continue to put herself in a place where smoking was associated with that space, then you see she's fighting an uphill battle.
Yes.
Right? So ensure that you have a physical space that supports you in developing this new habit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is time. Locate the new behavior in a time that you can then say, okay, at such and such a time, this is what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so coming back to the exercise, if you say, okay, I'm going to start exercising X number of times a week for this duration, and it's hit or miss, whether you do it in the morning, midday, or evening, you're less likely to form the winning habit.
Mm-hmm.
If you attach it to a particular place or places, because you can alternate it, sometimes you walk, sometimes you go to the gym, do what you enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
but put it in a particular time so that becomes a trigger for you.
Yes.
It's this time of the day, this is what I do at this time of day. And the third thing that I would say, have a supportive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be there with you? And I don't necessarily mean physically with you, but in terms of giving you the support, the encouragement, that feedback that you need to persist, because there are going to be times when you don't feel like doing this acquired behavior.
Yes.
But if you have the supportive environment in terms of the place, in terms of the time, and in terms of people with you, encouraging you, including when you slip, to say, listen, it's, one slip isn't fatal. Let's get back on and keep it going.
Cheese on bread, Joan. I don't have enough time. I would love, because in the next chapter, you talk about that change curve, which I think is so fascinating as well. So folks, because it's so fascinating, let me get the book. Let's walk this journey together. Joan, I want to encourage everyone today to check you out. And again, I want to remind you, you can go to Days Bookstore. The books are available there. It's called, Manager's First Aid Kit. Get it today. You can go to the website utdsinc.com, and you can get it there. You can go on to Amazon. You can get it there. And as Joan would love to tell me, but I'm here. You can get it from me too. Those are so many different places that you can get this. And I want to encourage families and mothers and parents as well, teachers, all of you. You can all learn from this. Next time we come about, we're going to be talking a little bit about becoming change able and looking at that change curve. If you don't mind, Joan, please. I'm catching
Always
up.
A pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so very much for joining me again this morning. Joan Underwood.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.